My son refused to pay my hospital bill, called me a waste of money in front of strangers. But the way he said it, like he'd been holding that poison in his throat since childhood. Why? Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, where you're watching from right now. The morning after he called me a waste of money, I lay in a sterile hospital room, sunlight crawling across the wall like time mocking me. My name wasn't on the chart clipped to the bed anymore. They'd replaced it with Room 108, Transfer Pending. Beside me, a bright bouquet sat on the table. My heart lifted for a moment, until I saw the card. To Mr. Daniels, get well soon, from your grandkids. Wrong man. Wrong bed. Wrong family. The nurse barely made eye contact when she came in to check my vitals. She moved around me like I wasn't there. No greeting, no warmth. Just quick glances at the machines, then out the door again. The only sound left was the beep of my heart monitor, steady, hollow. I reached for the call button. Nothing happened. Disconnected. Then the door creaked. I turned, hope rising, but it wasn't my son. It was my daughter. She stepped inside like she was entering a stranger's home. One hand clutched her phone like a shield, the other gripped her purse tight enough to whiten her knuckles. "Elena," I croaked. My throat was dry, raw. She hesitated, then walked over. "Dad," she said, barely above a whisper. "You came," I said. It was all I could manage. She nodded. "Only for a minute. Ryan said it was urgent." "Ryan, my son." "Of course." I studied her face. She looked tired. Makeup couldn't hide the dark rings under her eyes. But something else was off, guilt, maybe. Or fear. "I heard what he said yesterday," I told her. "Everyone heard." She looked away. "He didn't mean it like that. He called me a waste of money, Elena." Her silence was louder than any apology. Then I saw it. Clipped to her bag was a tiny silver chain. At the end of it hung something I recognized instantly. The founder's key. My key. The one that used to hang in my office for 23 years. I had it framed behind glass. Now it dangled off her purse like some designer charm. "You're wearing that?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She looked down. "It's just symbolic. Ryan said it was time we moved forward. That you'd agreed to step back. To pass the torch." "I never said that," I snapped. "And that key, why is it with you?" Her eyes darted around the room. "It's just a token now. Nobody uses keys like that anymore. You don't carry a legacy on a keychain, Elena." She flinched. "Ryan said you were losing touch with reality. That maybe it was best if." "If what?" I cut in. "If I forgot who I am? Forgot what I built?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper. "He said to give you this," she mumbled, placing it at the foot of my bed. I picked it up with shaking fingers. Discharge paperwork. Not from the hospital, but from the ownership board. My name scratched out. A new name typed in. Ryan H. Carter, primary stakeholder. The air thinned. "Elena," I said quietly, "you signed this?" She hesitated. Then nodded. "He said you asked for it. That you were tired." I was sedated, not tired. A long silence stretched between us like a canyon. "I didn't know, Dad," she said finally. "He said it was all legal. You're a witness on a lie." Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't want to lose him too. That was it. The truth in 7 words. She wasn't just carrying my key, she was carrying her guilt. I turned away, the beeping of the heart monitor suddenly louder, more erratic. Please, she said. Don't make this harder. I didn't respond. I just stared at the wall, the weight of that silver key burning in my peripheral vision. She walked out quietly. When the door clicked shut behind her, I whispered to no one. I didn't lose the hospital, they lost me. She said it was just symbolic, but when they took the key, they stole everything I still had left. He won't be coming back here, my son said, loudly. I was wheeled out of the hospital room the next day. Not in ceremony. Not in celebration. Just two tired orderlies following printed instructions stapled to my blanket. The hallway lights flickered overhead as we passed portraits of board members, photos I paid to hang, men I helped elevate. Mine used to be there, too. It wasn't anymore. When they reached the lobby, Ryan was waiting. He stood next to the billing desk in a tailored suit that still couldn't hide the rot under his skin. His arm draped casually over my daughter's shoulder. Elena didn't meet my gaze. He won't be coming back here, Ryan said. Loud. Clear. Final. People turned. Nurses paused mid-step. A receptionist dropped her pen. Even the coffee machine sputtered into silence. This is my hospital now, he continued. And our legal team decided it's time he stepped aside. For good. A woman near the elevator gasped. He built this place, she whispered. Ryan smiled. Exactly. Past tense. The orderly beside me looked uncomfortable. Sir, should we wait for admin approval? You have it, Ryan snapped. I am admin. Behind him, a security guard stepped forward. Young. Nervous. New. He's not a patient anymore, Ryan said. Take him to the curb. I didn't speak. Not yet. I just looked around the lobby, at the polished marble floor I helped fund, the directory I helped design, the waiting area I insisted include books for children. A woman stood near the nurse's station, holding a toddler. Her eyes met mine. I knew that look. Pity. Elena, I said. She blinked. Elena. Are you really letting this happen? Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth but no sound came out. Ryan spoke for her. She understands. We all do. It's time. Time. That word again. As if time erased worth. As if years of sacrifice could be wiped clean because someone else printed a new nameplate. I looked at the nurse behind the desk. Could you hand me my things, please? She paused. Then reached under the counter and lifted a small tray. One item sat on it. The founder's key. Not the replica on Elena's purse. The real one. Weighty. Scratched. Mine. She set it in my lap without a word. Ryan didn't notice, he was too busy basking in his moment. You think this makes you powerful? I asked him quietly. He leaned in. I think it makes you irrelevant. I held up the key between two fingers. The crowd stared. Ryan's smile faltered. This key, I said, unlocks more than doors. It unlocks memory. History. Truth. Someone clapped. Just once. Then again. A nurse. An old one. Mrs. Dawson. Retired, I thought. She was back, God knows why, but she stood now with her hand on her chest. This man stayed overnight when the generator failed, she said. He carried oxygen tanks door to door. Ryan's face turned pale. Another voice chimed in. A janitor. He hired my son when no one else would. Paid for his GED. People looked between Ryan and me. The tide shifting. I didn't need to raise my voice. I just held up the key one last time. This doesn't belong on a chain, I said. It belongs in the hands of someone who remembers what it was for. I placed it on the lobby desk. Then I wheeled myself to the door, past the whispers, past the shame, past the legacy they tried to bury. Outside, the sun was bright. The birds still sang. But I didn't feel the warmth. The key stayed behind on that counter, cold, exposed, and waiting for someone to remember who it really belonged to. My accounts were accessed at 3:17 a.m. The cab ride home was quiet. Too quiet. The driver recognized me, asked, "Didn't you used to own that place?" I nodded once, then looked away. There was no pride left to speak from. By the time I reached my gate, something felt off. The porch light didn't come on. Inside, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. The kind that makes your own heartbeat sound like an intruder. My mail was stacked in perfect, untouched piles on the kitchen table. Nothing forward dated. Nothing with my name. Everything was addressed to Ryan H. Carter, or occupant. I sat down slowly and opened my laptop. It refused my fingerprint login. I typed in my password manually. Nothing. The third attempt locked me out. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mr. Carter," a voice said. "This is First Federal Bank calling to confirm your identity before we proceed with the final disbursement." Final what? The final wire transfer. 48,000, to Carter Holdings. Processed last night. We just need your voice authorization. My stomach turned. I never authorized that. There was a pause on the line. "Sir, the authorization came in through your digital signature. Timestamped at 3:17 a.m. yesterday." I hung up and opened my desk drawer, where I used to keep my personal ledgers, statements, my original founder's key box. Gone. In its place, a single note. "You won't need this anymore. We've taken care of everything. R." I rushed to the file cabinet. Empty. The office, once filled with every document I ever used to protect this family, was a carcass. Every folder, every hard drive, gone. Only a small silver paperclip sat on the desk. It was bent. I recognized it. From the day Elena notarized my voluntary retirement papers. I had handed her that paperclip from this very drawer. That was the day she betrayed me. The signature was never mine. It was copied. Scanned. Forged. I closed my eyes and tried to remember the timeline. That same night, I was under sedation. A fall. Mild concussion. I had taken sleeping medication. I wasn't just tired that night. I was drugged. I grabbed the landline, the one Ryan never disconnected, and called the last man who still owed me loyalty. "Hello? David," I said. "Do you still have access to the ownership lease?" A pause. Then, "Sir, you're not supposed to be calling me. Ryan told us. I built that lease with my own two hands, David. Now answer me." The CFO's voice cracked. "I don't know what happened, sir. But the lease you signed, it was replaced last week with a new contract. I never signed anything. Then someone did it for you." I felt something shift in my chest, not a heart attack, not pain, just cold. Clean cold. "I need a copy," I said. "I can't send it to your email, he has your credentials locked." "Then mail it. Priority. Unmarked envelope." He hesitated. "There's something else." "What?" "The founder's equity account, it's drained." "How much?" "All of it." My hand clenched around the receiver. "All of it. Over 2 decades of sacrifice, reinvestments, tax protections, donations under my name, gone." Elena. I didn't want to believe it, but her name was on the notary line. The digital trail would show her login. I stared at the silver paperclip again. What did he promise her? A house? A career? Or worse, did she do it for nothing? I walked out of the office and opened the closet in the hallway. There, still tucked in an old shoebox, was a backup thumb drive. I plugged it into my laptop. It still booted, protected with an offline password they couldn't hack. Inside, I found a scan from my original founder's lease, dated, sealed, notarized from 17 years ago. The key difference? A clause they thought I'd forget. Ownership rights revert in full to the founder upon demonstration of fraud, coercion, or incapacity. I had built a fail-safe. I hadn't forgotten everything. I printed the document on heavy stock paper. It felt solid. Real. Unlike every lie they'd digitized. Then I picked up the small founder's key box from the shelf, my backup. Inside, the duplicate key I'd hidden decades ago. Not for anyone else. For me. For this moment. I held it in my palm and whispered, "You think you've won. But you never read the fine print. That contract they forged was a trap, and I was the one who set it. You retired." "It's over," he said. "I never signed that." I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was restless, but because for the first time since the betrayal began, I was awake in every sense of the word. At 6:02 a.m., I walked into the hospital's main reception, not as a patient, not as a father, but as the man who built the walls they now hid behind. No security tried to stop me this time. Maybe they hadn't gotten the memo, or maybe they'd seen the headlines starting to creep into local blogs, "Founder erased? Power struggle at Carter General. Whispers follow you faster than facts ever can." I didn't go to Ryan's office. I went to the old boardroom, 3rd floor, West Wing, the one with no cameras. The place where the first contract was signed. Where dreams became documents. David, the CFO, met me there. He looked thinner. Grayer. "You shouldn't be here," he said, glancing around. "I never left," I replied. "You have the file?" He handed me a flash drive and a hard copy. "This is the new contract Ryan pushed through. Digital signature, scanned approvals, time-stamped revisions. All under your name. But I never signed it." "I know," David said. "And I checked the metadata. The timestamp matches the night you were admitted after your fall. The night I was drugged." His jaw clenched. "I can't prove that." "You won't have to." "I can." I opened the founder's key box and placed the duplicate key on the table. It clinked against the wood, solid, undeniable. David looked at it like it was a ghost. "That's the original?" "No," I said. "That's the backup. The original is on display somewhere in Ryan's house, probably on a shelf next to his delusions." We both chuckled, though neither of us really smiled. Then I pulled out my insurance form from my visit 2 days earlier, the one that didn't list me under coverage. At the bottom, under emergency contact, someone had signed on my behalf. Authorized by RHC, acting medical POA. I circled the initials and looked at David. "He used medical authority," I said, "to gain business control." David nodded. "That's elder fraud." "No," I corrected him. "That's war." I asked him one last favor, a printout of the staff payroll. He looked confused. "Why?" "Because the man cutting the checks isn't the one who cut the ribbon on opening day. I want the staff to remember that." He hesitated, then slid a folder toward me. I opened it, flipped past the numbers, until one name jumped out. Elena Carter, Community Liaison Officer. I stared at it. Not because of the title. But because of the salary. Ryan had given her a position that paid more than she ever earned as a social worker. A position that didn't exist 2 weeks ago. I clenched my fists. She sold me out for this? David said nothing. The phone on the wall buzzed once. Security alert. Ryan knew I was here. I have to go, David whispered. Not yet. I took out the hard copy of the real founder lease, the one I printed last night, and placed it side by side with Ryan's forged version. Can you see the difference? He squinted. Yours is dated with the original registrar stamp. His has a digital overlay. I flipped them over. My signature was clean, blue ink. His was pixelated, scanned. Artificial. This clause, I said, tapping the fine print, gives me full reversal rights if any part of the transfer was under duress. And we have proof, David whispered. I nodded. Now we just need a trigger. The door swung open behind me. Ryan stepped in, flanked by 2 board members and a security officer. David, he said coolly. You'll want to step out. David looked at me. I gave a slight nod. He left. Ryan closed the door behind him and walked to the head of the table, the spot I used to sit. You're wasting your time, he said. This isn't your office anymore. I looked around slowly. It's still my paint on the walls. He smirked. That clause you're clinging to doesn't hold. We restructured the trust last quarter. Without my consent. With implied consent, he corrected. And your daughter's witness signature. It's airtight. I stood up. You forgot one thing, son. He folded his arms. What's that? I never sign in black ink. His expression flickered, just a split second of doubt. I slid my original document across the table. Dated. Stamped. In blue. Filed under the old trust. Ryan picked it up. His fingers twitched. You can't use this. It's outdated. Maybe, I said. But courts love outdated things. Especially when they're real. I leaned in, voice low. You want the name. The building. The illusion. But I still hold the truth. I picked up the founder's key from the table. And for the first time in weeks. I smiled. Outside that boardroom, they still thought Ryan ran the hospital, but inside, I just reopened the first door he forgot to lock. He's trespassing, my son told security. He doesn't work here. They made the boardroom look like a courtroom. 12 chairs around the table. A stack of binders. Water pitchers. A printed agenda. Item 1, Founders Overreach. Item 2, Board Confidence Vote. I sat at the far end, alone, while Ryan strutted through the double doors like he owned the oxygen in the room. Behind him came Elena. She didn't look at me. On her wrist, the chain still dangled. At the end of it, the founder's key. Not mine. A replica. A trophy. The chairwoman, someone I had hired 10 years ago, opened with a rehearsed line. We're here to discuss the disruption caused by Mr. Carter's unauthorized re-entry into Carter General. Unauthorized? I asked. I built this place. Ryan leaned forward. Which you voluntarily retired from. Remember the documents you signed? He tapped the folder in front of him like it was a gavel. I didn't flinch. You mean the documents dated while I was in a hospital bed, under sedatives, unconscious for 18 hours? No one answered. Elena cleared her throat. Dad. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She couldn't hold my stare for more than a second. I signed because Ryan said you approved it, she whispered. Ryan jumped in. He did. There was a recording. No recording exists, I interrupted. Then why did the digital system validate it? Ryan barked. I stood and slowly placed 2 binders on the table. One was the forged contract. The other, the original founder's lease. Blue ink, dated, notarized, heart-stamped. Then I placed a flash drive between them. Because you manipulated the validation system. And this, I tapped the drive, has the metadata proving the timestamp mismatch. Silence fell. I didn't rush it. I let the silence stretch long enough for every lie in the room to feel the weight of truth. The chairwoman finally spoke. Is this a formal challenge? I nodded. It is. Then the board will vote. Ryan sat back, confident. He thought he had them all. And maybe he did. Until the elevator dinged outside the boardroom glass. Heads turned. A camera crew stepped out. Microphones. Boom mics. A local news anchor with a voice that could slice glass. Ryan's smirk vanished. What the hell is this? They called us, said the anchor. We got an anonymous tip, fraud at Carter General. Elder abuse. Signature forgery. She looked straight through the glass at me. Mr. Carter, would you care to comment? I didn't move. But Elena did. She stood. Shaking. Unsteady. I need to say something, she whispered. Ryan's voice turned sharp. Sit down. She didn't. She faced the board. The night those documents were signed. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe Dad had agreed to it. Ryan was convincing. I was scared. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. But I was wrong. And I can't keep lying. Ryan exploded. You're just doing this because he cut off your stipend. Elena snapped back. No, I'm doing this because he never cut me off. You did. The anchor turned to the chairwoman. Are we live? The board erupted in confusion. Someone fumbled with the agenda. Ryan tried to block the camera. But it was too late. The story had gone public. 10 minutes later, security tried to escort me out of the building. He's trespassing, Ryan told them. He doesn't work here. But this time, the crowd in the lobby didn't look away. They stepped forward. Nurses. Orderlies. A surgeon from the trauma unit who'd been on call for 19 years. He's not trespassing, the surgeon said. He's our founder. Whispers turned to voices. Voices to shouting. A patient in a wheelchair rolled closer and said, if he leaves, I leave. Ryan's face lost all its color. The founder's key, still hanging from Elena's wrist, caught the light, and for the first time, she unclipped it and handed it back. I don't deserve this, she said softly. No, I replied. But you can earn your way back. She nodded, holding back sobs. Security hesitated. Then stepped aside. I walked through the crowd, key in my palm, not saying a word. A young nurse asked, is it true? Did they really try to erase you? I stopped just long enough to answer. They didn't erase me. They just reminded me who I am. As the news camera followed me down the hall, the world finally saw who they tried to silence, and who wasn't going quietly. The mortgage bounced before sunrise. I didn't shout. Didn't throw a single punch. I just made a call. It was 11:07 p.m. when I dialed the number no one else remembered still worked. Carter Trusts and Holdings, said the voice on the other end. An old voice. Familiar. Marianne, I said. This is Samuel Carter. A pause. Then, Founder Carter? My God, is it really you? Yes, I said. And I need to invoke Clause 17. Another pause. This time sharper. More cautious. You mean? I mean, I interrupted, freeze every discretionary account tied to my personal trust. Including corporate shells, dividends, real estate flows, and all auto-pay rollouts. Marianne whistled low. That'll cause some ripples. I'm counting on it. I didn't sleep that night, not out of anxiety, but out of sheer anticipation. At exactly 6:15 a.m., the first call came. Not to me, to Ryan. He answered with his usual arrogance, still wrapped in silk and delusion. Yeah, speaking. A pause. What do you mean the mortgage bounced? Another pause. No, there must be a glitch. Try again. He hung up fast, then immediately called someone else. I don't care if the system flagged it. This house is in my name. I sipped my coffee across the street, in an old sedan David lent me. Watching. Waiting. The calls kept coming. Credit card declined. Car lease frozen. Utilities suspended. Corporate payroll, pending. By 9 a.m., my daughter-in-law stormed into the hospital like a hornet in heels. This is harassment, she shouted at the receptionist. We are the owners. The receptionist, who had been silent the day I was discharged, now stood tall. Actually, that matter is under legal review. People stared. One nurse whispered, didn't her husband call the founder a waste of money? Another replied, guess he should have invested in a lawyer instead. The fire was spreading. By noon, Elena showed up at my house. She didn't knock. Just stood there with her hands shaking, holding an envelope. Inside, her resignation letter. I'm sorry, Dad, she said. I didn't answer. Just pointed at the chair. She sat. They're broke, she whispered. Ryan's screaming at bankers. Trying to shift blame. Says you planted a virus. I chuckled. I didn't plant anything. I just removed what didn't belong. She stared at the founder's key on my desk. The real one. Restored. Waited. Was any of it ever real? She asked. The meetings, the contracts, the papers I signed? I turned the key slowly between my fingers. The ink was real. The trust wasn't. Tears welled up. I didn't know he'd go that far. I thought, we were protecting the hospital. You weren't protecting it. You were monetizing it. I lost myself, she whispered. Then find your way back, I said. Not for me. For yourself. She nodded and left. I watched her walk down the path, not as a traitor, not as a daughter, but as a woman trying to crawl out of her own shadow. By evening, the news had caught up. Hospital accounts frozen amidst ownership dispute. Founder retaliates with financial clampdown. Silent strike, Carter Sr. freezes son's empire in one night. Ryan was drowning, and for the first time, no one threw him a lifeline. At precisely 9:31 p.m., my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I answered. Dad? His voice was thin. Dry. Unfamiliar. Yes. You made your point. I haven't made anything yet, I said. That was just the reset. He laughed bitterly. You think this is over? You think you've won? No, I said calmly. But now we're finally playing fair. He hung up. The hospital ran on oxygen and discipline, but my son was learning the hard way, without legacy, money is just air waiting to be cut off. Online, I was suddenly labeled abusive father turned lunatic. It started with a blog post. Nothing official. Just a badly written paragraph floating on a medical gossip site, ex-founder faces mental decline, family forced to intervene. No names. No sources. But it didn't matter. It spread like infection. By noon, a photo of me, hunched in the boardroom, holding the founder's key, was edited and captioned. Man clings to imaginary power as family saves hospital. I scrolled in silence. The comments bled. Typical boomer complex. He should be in assisted care. Sad how dementia ruins legacies. They didn't know I was reading. They didn't care. Ryan had weaponized silence before. But this time, he had found something worse, a whisper campaign dressed as concern. The second wave came fast. A local influencer posted a TikTok, quick cuts, dramatic music, screenshots of contracts, my medical forms blurred out in the background. Caption: this is why you always check on your older relatives. It went viral. Within hours, my name was trending in the region. Not for what I built, but for what they claimed I'd forgotten. The phone rang. It was my neighbor, Janice. A widow. Knitter. Gossip funnel. Samuel, she whispered, they're saying, you lost it. That you were seen arguing with a wall. I closed my eyes. No wall, Janice. Just a locked door. Are you okay? I'm getting there. She hesitated. People want to believe the younger ones. It makes them feel safer. I know. But safety built on lies is just a soft blanket over a fire. That evening, someone knocked on my door. It was Officer Laramie. Young. Eager. The kind who still believed all paperwork told the truth. Mr. Carter, I'm here for a wellness check. On whose request? Anonymous tip. Said you might be experiencing cognitive delusions. I stared at him. He stared back. I stepped aside. Come in. He walked around. Noted the framed photos, the clean dishes, the chessboard with 2 pieces mid-game. You live alone? I do. You remember the date today? Do you? He smiled politely. Just doing my job. He glanced at my wall, where the hospital's original groundbreaking photo still hung. Me, Ryan, Elena, and my late wife. All smiling. All real. I remember this, he said. I was 10. My mom worked admin back then. Said you gave her a Christmas bonus out of your own pocket. I nodded once. She deserved it. He exhaled. No signs of delusion here. You want me to file a counter-report? No, I said. Let the liars write. I'll answer with ink they can't erase. He tipped his cap and left. But the damage wasn't done. At 11:42 p.m., my email pinged. A forwarded thread. Subject: urgent, hospital board meeting, private only. From Ryan Carter. To internal counsel, board members. We may need to prepare legal framing for long-term psychological evaluation in case my father continues his public outbursts. Recommend starting with local law enforcement and physician testimony. Can we draft a non-compliant medical threat clause? I read it twice. Then 3 more times. This wasn't just damage control. It was entrapment. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to disqualify me. But they underestimated the thing they couldn't fake: witnesses. Real ones. People who remembered. I dialed Pastor Howard. He'd baptized my children. Buried my wife. Heard more confessions than he ever preached sermons. Sam, he answered, voice like gravel and mercy. They're calling me unstable. I saw the stories. Then I need Sunday morning, I said. 5 minutes. On the pulpit. He didn't hesitate. It's yours. That night, I didn't cry. But I did open the founder's key box once more. I stared at the engraving on its lid, in memory of Margaret, build what matters. Ryan had erased everything except the one thing he couldn't touch. Her. Her voice. Her caution. Her warnings. Don't let them turn your silence into guilt. The next morning, I shaved. Pressed my best suit. Polished the shoes I hadn't worn since her funeral. Then I left the house, and stepped back into the fire they'd lit for me. They wanted the world to see a mad old man, but I was going to show them a father no lie could silence. She handed me a letter, written in her own handwriting. The church was already full when I arrived. Not for me. Not yet. The Sunday service had drawn the usual crowd, familiar faces, old prayers, polite smiles. But I wasn't here for the sermon. I was here for the testimony. Pastor Howard met me at the side door. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet conviction. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. "Let them hear it straight." The organ music swelled. The choir sang. And just before the final hymn, he stepped up to the pulpit and said the words that shifted the entire room. "Before we close, we have a guest. A father. A founder. A man some of you know, and some of you think you know. Samuel Carter has something to say." Gasps followed. Murmurs too. I walked to the pulpit. Suit pressed. Founder's key in my breast pocket. Heart steady. "I was told I was unfit," I began. "That my memory was fading. That my mind was broken. That I was dangerous." I looked out across the pews. Some faces turned away. Others stared, guilty, curious, stunned. But I remember every brick in that hospital. I remember the nights I slept on a cot in the ER. I remember the name of the first baby delivered in the maternity wing, Grace Lillian Mendez. Born 2 weeks premature. Someone gasped from the third row. A woman stood, hand to her mouth. "That's my daughter," she whispered. I nodded once. And I held her. Because the doctor fainted, and no one else was in the room. Laughter. Small. Nervous. Then a wave of applause. I held up the founder's key, let it catch the light. They want this to be symbolic. A decoration. But it's more than that. It's truth in metal. It's legacy with weight. Then I saw her, Elena. She stood near the back. Pale. Still. A paper envelope clutched in her hands. I finished with a single line. "My son may own the building. But I still carry its soul." I stepped down. Pastor Howard led the final prayer. But the room never settled again. Outside, I stood in the courtyard, soaking in the sun, shaking hands with people who wouldn't meet my eyes just a week ago. "Sir," a voice said behind me. I turned. Elena held out the envelope. Her eyes rimmed red. "I wrote this last night," she said. "Before I knew you'd speak today." I opened the letter right there, in front of her. It wasn't long. Just 4 handwritten lines. "I was weak. I believed the wrong version of you. I thought silence was safety. I was wrong. I looked up. I should have trusted you," she whispered. "I let Ryan twist everything. I thought I was protecting our future. By signing away our past," I said. She nodded, tears falling. "I want to fix it," she said. "I saved everything, emails, text threads, recordings. I thought I was collecting it for leverage, but maybe it's for redemption." She pulled out a flash drive. "It's all here. Everything." I took it and slipped it into my pocket. Right beside the key. "You might have betrayed me," I said. "But you still have a chance to betray the lie." Behind her, a few churchgoers were filming. Recording. Watching. She looked over her shoulder. "You want me to go public?" "No," I said. "I want you to decide who you are now." Then I walked away. That night, Elena did something none of us expected. She posted her story. Not through the hospital's PR team. Not through a lawyer. But on her personal Facebook page. A photo of me holding her as a baby in my scrubs. Caption. The man they said lost his mind, remembered my birthday every year, even when I forgot his. Then the second post dropped. Screenshots. Voice notes. Email threads where Ryan bragged. Once the old man's out, we rebrand. No more small-town drama. Big donors only. No more free beds. People flooded the comments. Disgusting. Glad she came forward. This is what real courage looks like. By morning, the local newspaper had picked it up. By noon, a radio host was reading it live on air. By evening, the hashtag was trending. Hashtag remember the founder. Ryan tried to respond. Press release. Statement about family tensions and miscommunications. But it was too late. His silence was no longer strategic. It was guilt under a spotlight. The girl who once carried my key as a trophy, now carried the truth as a weapon, and aimed it straight at her brother. My lawyer's briefcase clicked open across from the judge. The courtroom smelled like old wood and consequences. It wasn't a flashy trial, no cameras, no reporters inside. Just a probate judge, a table of attorneys, and silence thick enough to shatter. I sat at the plaintiff's table in a dark navy suit, worn tight across the shoulders. My hands folded over a leather folder, aged, familiar, and now stuffed with proof. Beside me sat Julian Marks, the only attorney I trusted. He used to be my lawyer back when Carter General was just an idea scribbled on napkins over black coffee. Now he was here to defend the truth they tried to delete. Across the aisle, Ryan. Alone. No wife. No sister. No smile. He looked thinner. Paler. Rage hollowed out his face. He had thought silence would shield him. Instead, it isolated him. The judge entered. All rise. And just like that, the war went from whispers to law. Julian began with the contracts. We are submitting into evidence the original founder's lease, notarized with blue ink signatures, registrar stamps, and time-aligned filing, he said. This document predates any digital transfer claimed by the defendant. He laid it down like a gavel. Ryan's attorney, a high-priced, tired-eyed man, objected weakly. We dispute the legitimacy of this contract's current standing. Julian cut in. Your client filed a forged document while Mr. Carter was medically sedated in a hospital under his own insurance policy, which, we now know, he removed the plaintiff from. That is not just unethical. It is illegal. The courtroom fell still. Then came the real blow. Elena Carter, Julian said, please take the stand. She rose from the bench, confident, remorseful, brave. She looked at Ryan, then at me, then at the judge. My brother manipulated my father's medical documents. He claimed mental instability. He pressured me to sign off on a false narrative. Why? The judge asked. He wanted everything. The title. The image. The power. He said we'd modernize the brand once Dad was legally irrelevant. And you? The judge asked. She swallowed. I went along with it. I thought I was protecting the hospital. I was protecting a lie. She submitted the flash drive. Inside it, voice memos, emails, call logs, everything. Ryan shifted in his seat, his fingers twitching. This recording, Julian said, features the defendant bragging about using forged timestamps and planning to lock Dad in a golden cage by declaring medical incompetence. The judge listened. Then stared at Ryan. Do you have anything to say, Mr. Carter? Ryan stood slowly. I didn't mean for it to go that far. That far? He sounded like a boy caught scribbling on a wall, not a man who nearly buried his own father alive in legal dirt. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Carter, your father isn't just the founder of the hospital, he is, in fact, the legal owner of the trust from which your authority supposedly derives. And that authority was seized through falsified medical declarations, fraud, and coercion." Julian spoke again. "We're filing for full reinstatement of Mr. Carter's executive powers, legal revocation of Ryan Carter's role, and financial damages under elder abuse and business identity fraud." The judge nodded slowly. "I'll need 2 business days to issue a ruling." Then he looked at Ryan. "In the meantime, you are not to access any hospital systems, accounts, or properties until this court renders judgment. Is that understood?" Ryan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Security escorted him out 5 minutes later. Outside, the courthouse was no longer quiet. People had gathered. Not just reporters now, but hospital staff. Nurses. Orderlies. Volunteers. Some held signs. "Bring back the founder. Dignity has a name. Carter General, not Carter's greed." I walked down the steps slowly. One by one, they started clapping. Not wildly. Not theatrically. But like something sacred had just been restored. Elena walked beside me. For the first time in weeks, she didn't flinch under the weight of truth. I took the founder's key from my pocket and handed it to her. "Hold this," I said. She looked down at it, confused. "You're giving it to me again?" "No," I said. "You're carrying it this time. There's a difference." She nodded, and her eyes welled up, but no tears fell. That night, Ryan posted a video online. Not an apology. Just a hollow statement: "I made mistakes. But I was trying to modernize. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." The comments weren't kind. "You meant to erase your father. Keep digging, Ryan. You don't deserve the name Carter." The video was taken down within an hour. But the damage? Permanent. He tried to bury me in paper, but I rose with a signature he couldn't forge, and a truth too loud to silence. The hospital's website listed a new message: "Under investigation." By the time the court clerk stamped the reinstatement order, the dominoes were already falling. The hospital's homepage, which once displayed Ryan's polished grin beside a mission statement he didn't write, was updated with a stark banner. "Under investigation, all statements pending review." Clicking it led to a formal apology. Not from Ryan. From the board. They called it "a regrettable lapse in internal integrity." Translation: they were running from the fire. And the fire was Ryan. It didn't take long for the creditors to smell blood. A week before, they were sending flowers to his office. Now they were freezing lines of credit and pulling out of deals. One by one. Gone. At 9:13 a.m., the sheriff walked into Ryan's office. Not just any deputy. Sheriff Keller. A man I once sponsored through med school before he changed careers. He didn't knock. Just entered with 2 plainclothes officers. Ryan stood behind the desk, trying to act surprised. "Do you have a warrant?" he asked, voice sharp, shaking. Keller held it up. "We do. Search and seizure. Electronic devices, bank records, and anything linked to Carter Holdings or Carter General corporate accounts." "I'm the CEO," Ryan barked. "Not anymore." He watched as they boxed up hard drives, pulled drawers off tracks, and took his precious replica of the founder's key off the shelf. "This doesn't belong to you," Keller said, pocketing it without ceremony. Ryan didn't shout. Not this time. He just sat in the leather chair I once bought for that room, and looked very, very small. At 1:47 p.m., Elena called me. "He's losing it," she whispered. "He's blaming me. Says I turned on him." I didn't say anything. Dad. I didn't do this for revenge. I know, I said. I did it because you built something sacred, and we let him turn it into a storefront. That night, I watched the news in silence. Segment after segment. A leaked recording showed Ryan berating a nurse who questioned his authority. You work for my family now. Get used to it. The clip aired on the evening news, captioned in bold. Tyrant in a white coat? Below it, they ran a side-by-side image, Ryan's scowl and my original founder's photo. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. The hospital board held a press conference the next morning. They named me honorary chair emeritus and issued a formal cease and desist against Ryan's continued use of the Carter General brand for personal promotion. The same hands that shook his not long ago now refused to meet his eyes. His fall wasn't explosive. It was silent. Systemic. Public. Permanent. His wife, meanwhile, faced her own reckoning. Social media dug up her boutique's financial records, credit card scams, fake charity partnerships, multiple unpaid invoices. Customers lined up outside the shop not to buy, but to return everything. One woman held up a dress and shouted, "You sold us lies, just like your husband." The boutique shut down that evening. For good. Elena stood beside me on the hospital's rooftop garden the next day. The very place where I once held her, newly born, in a blanket with our family crest stitched in gold. I wish Mom could see this, she said. She wouldn't have let it get this far, I replied. No. But she'd be proud you stopped it. We both stared out at the skyline. I pulled the real founder's key from my coat and held it in my palm. Do you think Ryan ever wanted the hospital for the right reasons? She asked. I thought about it. About the boy I raised. The man he became. The choices he made. I think he wanted the name, I said. But not the weight that came with it. Elena nodded. Then handed me a single folded page. It was Ryan's letter. Written in blocky, uncertain handwriting. I messed up. I didn't know how to say it until I had nothing left. I don't expect forgiveness. Just space. I'm going away for a while. No return address. No signature. Just that line at the bottom. Tell Dad I know he won. I folded it and tucked it away. This was never about winning, I said. She looked at me. Then what was it about? I stared down at the key again. About remembering who you are when everyone tries to forget. He thought taking my title would silence me, but in the end, it only exposed who he truly was when the world stopped clapping. You don't deserve to be a father, he sobbed into the mic. The town hall was standing room only. Not for an election. Not for a ribbon cutting. But for a community forum called Dignity After Betrayal. The flyers had my name on them, but I didn't organize it. The people did. After everything. After the lies, the smear campaigns, the frozen accounts, and viral accusations, they wanted to hear my side in the light of day. No cameras. Just voices. Just faces. Just truth. The podium was modest. A single mic. A banner hung above it with red lettering. This town doesn't forget who builds it. Elena stood beside me. Her hands trembled. Her eyes darted across the crowd, locking onto neighbors she once avoided. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. Yes, you can, I said. Because this time, you're not covering a lie. You're uncovering it. She stepped forward. My name is Elena Carter, she began. I was part of the silence. I helped my brother. I let my father believe we'd honor his legacy, while we prepared to erase it. Gasps rippled through the hall. She continued. We used legal tricks, forged consent, falsified narratives. We told you he was unstable. That he gave us control. That we were modernizing. She paused. But the truth is, we weren't modernizing. We were monetizing. A few heads bowed. Others stared, jaws clenched. And I let it happen, she said, voice cracking. Because I was scared of losing everything. She looked at me. But the only thing I really lost was him. Silence. Then applause. Not explosive. Not theatrical. Just long. Raw. Honest. I took the mic. I never wanted applause, I said. I just wanted my name to mean what it used to mean. Someone in the back shouted, "It still does." I smiled. Pastor Howard stepped up next. He laid a hand on my shoulder. This town has a way of forgetting what matters, until it's reminded with scars. Then he looked out at the crowd. Let's stop pretending silence is neutral. It isn't. It protects the loudest liar. He turned to me. And today, we restore something sacred. He reached into a velvet pouch. Pulled out a glass case. Inside it, the founder's key. The real one. Polished. Heavy. Whole. He placed it in my hands. We're returning this not because he asked for it, the pastor said. But because he never stopped carrying it. The crowd stood. One by one. Even those who had once turned away. Even those who had whispered behind their hands in hospital halls and neighborhood grocery aisles. They clapped. They nodded. They met my eyes. I didn't cry. But my hands tightened around that key like it was the last anchor to something real. Ryan wasn't there. But his absence didn't go unnoticed. During the Q&A, someone from the back, a teenager I didn't recognize, asked bluntly. "Is your son ever going to say sorry?" Before I could answer, a man stepped forward. Dr. Mercer. Pediatrician. Worked under Ryan. He held a small printed letter. He tried, Dr. Mercer said. Last night. He posted this online before deleting it. He read aloud. To the staff, patients, and people I failed. My name was inherited. But I forgot the work behind it. I thought a title meant ownership. Now I know it means responsibility. I'm sorry. A long silence followed. Then someone shouted, "Too little, too late." Another voice added, "Let the man fix himself first." I stepped forward again. "He doesn't need your forgiveness yet," I said. "He needs your distance." Then I placed the founder's key onto the podium, right under the mic, and said the words that mattered most. "But I need to thank you. All of you." I turned to Elena. To those who left but came back. I turned to the pastor. To those who never stopped watching. Then back to the crowd. And to those who turned away, only to realize the story wasn't finished. They clapped again. Louder this time. Stronger. The walls of that town hall, once filled with rumors and gossip, now echoed with restoration. Afterward, as the crowd thinned, a little girl came up to me. Maybe 7. Holding her mother's hand. "Are you the real Mr. Carter?" she asked. I knelt down. "Yes, I am." She smiled. "My mom says you helped build the place that saved my baby brother." I didn't know her name. Didn't remember the case. But I didn't need to. Because that's what legacy is. Not remembering what you built, but watching others live because you did. I walked out of that hall with no title, no lawsuit, no claim, just a key in my pocket and a town that finally remembered who I was. I signed the last will with a calm hand. The ink dried slowly. Not because my hand shook, but because I wanted the moment to last. Julian slid the final page toward me. "It's done," he said. You've just removed your son and daughter-in-law from every inheritance, trust, and controlling interest tied to your name. I nodded. No appeals? I asked. None. You tied it to the elder fraud conviction. Ironclad. Bulletproof. I folded the documents into a plain white envelope and pressed the seal shut with my thumb. Across the room, the fireplace crackled gently. It was the same room where I had first written the Carter General Mission Statement, on a yellow legal pad, in that same leather chair. I stood and walked toward the flames. The envelope in my hand held titles, assets, the hospital charter, and copies of the family trust. I held it over the fire for only a second. Then let go. The paper curled, then blackened. Then disappeared. Julian watched, silent. You don't want to keep even one copy? He asked. No, I said. It doesn't belong to them. And I don't need it anymore. He nodded slowly. And the remainder? I opened the safe. Took out a smaller folder, this one addressed to someone else. The Honor Trust, for displaced elders, nurses, and caretakers. Funded by every remaining dollar I once set aside for my children. I handed it to him. Send it to the state registry. Julian blinked. You're giving away the entire Carter legacy? No, I said. I'm returning it. He smiled, not wide, not performative, just with the quiet satisfaction of a man who had watched justice become generational. Later that evening, I stood before a live-stream camera in a modest studio. The hospital board had arranged it. A digital ribbon cutting for the newly renamed Elder Care Wing. Behind me, a plaque gleamed. The Margaret Carter Wing, for dignity, until the end. I pressed the mic. I built Carter General to treat people. Not to brand them. Not to monetize them. Not to inherit my name. But to protect the vulnerable. The camera light blinked red. Live. I watched my own son try to sell the soul of this place in pieces. And I forgave him longer than I should have. But today, I'm no longer defending my name. I'm defining it. I paused. Held up the founder's key. This is no longer a symbol of who owns the hospital. It's a symbol of who protects it. And starting today, that protection is no longer mine alone. Then I opened the velvet case, and dropped the key inside. Locked it. And handed it to Elena. Carry it, I said. Not for me. For them. The next morning, Ryan tried to post another video. This time from a hotel lobby. The background was cheap. The voice was quiet. The eyes were sunken. He looked like a man finally stripped of illusion. My father didn't destroy me, he said. He saved the hospital from me. He paused. I don't want anything else. Just peace. It went viral. But not because it was heartfelt. Because of what came next. A moderator in the comment thread posted a screenshot. Ryan had submitted a campaign inquiry. Filed paperwork to run for city council. That same day. The backlash was immediate. Fake redemption. He's back to scheming. He learned nothing. His campaign never launched. The paperwork was withdrawn before sundown. Meanwhile, the Honor Trust opened 2 pilot clinics in underfunded neighborhoods, fully staffed by laid-off nurses Ryan had once fired to optimize overhead. Each one featured a simple gold plaque above the entrance. Dignity doesn't belong to the rich. It belongs to the remembered. At home, I received a letter. No return address. Inside, a photo of my late wife's grave. A fresh flower laid across the stone. A small sticky note tucked inside. I finally visited her. I told her everything. I told her you did what I couldn't. No signature. But I recognized the handwriting. It wasn't Ryan's. It was hers. Elena. They tried to inherit my name, but I passed down something stronger, the one legacy no one can forge, dignity. We lost everything, just give us your name back, he pleads. They came to the door together. Not as a couple, but as co-defendants in the collapse of their own ambition. Ryan stood a step behind Elena. His hair was longer. His shirt wrinkled. The suit he wore looked like it hadn't been dry cleaned since the board voted him out. Elena, by contrast, stood upright. Composed. But her eyes flicked between mine and the ground like she didn't know which one she deserved to look at. "Dad," she said. "We just want to talk." I didn't open the screen door. I just looked at them. "You said everything you needed to when you signed my name away," I replied. Ryan cleared his throat. "I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I laughed once. "You called me a waste of money. You forged legal documents. You stole a hospital from your own father." "I was trying to save something," he muttered. "No. You were trying to save yourself." He didn't argue. He just nodded. "We lost everything," he said, voice cracking. "The house. The cars. My reputation. Everything." I stepped forward slightly, until the screen door creaked. "Not everything," I said. He looked confused. "You still have your last name," I continued. "But I'm about to take that too." Elena blinked. "You wouldn't." "I would," I said. "I already filed the paperwork. Legally, Carter General will no longer be associated with the Carter family name." Ryan's mouth fell open. "Then what is it?" he asked. "What's left?" I pulled the founder's key from my pocket. Held it up. "The name is just ink," I said. "This is what you tried to own. And this," I tossed it lightly in my palm, "belongs to someone who carries it with honor." Elena took a step closer. "I didn't ask for your forgiveness. But I am asking for your guidance." I looked her over. Measured her voice. Her sincerity. And then, slowly, I reached beside the door. Pulled out a small black box. Inside, a gold-plated replica key. Identical in shape. But hollow. Weightless. No engraving. No power. I handed it to her. "What is this?" she asked. "A reminder," I said. "That trust looks the same on the outside, but only one version actually opens doors." She turned the key in her fingers. "Can I ever earn it back?" she whispered. "That's not for me to say," I replied. "That's up to the patients you turned away. The staff you let him fire. The community that watched you pretend I didn't matter." Ryan stared at the ground. "I have nothing," he muttered. "No," I said, "you have something worse. You have the memory of everything you threw away." I turned to walk back inside. Elena stopped me. "What happens now?" I paused. "You rebuild," I said. "But not with my tools. Not with my name. And not with my forgiveness. That comes last, if it comes at all." She nodded. Accepted it. Ryan didn't speak again. They turned to leave. But just before they reached the gate, I called out. "Ryan." He turned. I held up the founder's key one last time. "You didn't lose this because you weren't good enough. You lost it because you didn't respect it." He blinked back tears. But I shut the door before he could say another word. Inside, I placed the real key back into its velvet box. Closed the latch. Then opened my desk drawer, and removed the final folder. Inside, a letter to the new hospital board, naming a new honorary leadership committee made up of nurses, custodians, and cafeteria staff, people who never forgot why the building existed. No more nepotism. No more bloodline claims. Just character. Commitment. Care. Later that night, Elena left something on my porch. Not a letter. Not flowers. Just a small framed photo. Of Mom. Holding baby Ryan in her arms. A post-it stuck to the corner read. She would have wanted us to remember how small we all start. I brought it inside. Placed it on the shelf behind the key. And for the first time in years, I felt the house settle around me, quiet, intact, whole. They came for inheritance, but I gave them something rarer, a hollow key, and the chance to build a name worth carrying. The crowd fell silent as I lifted the key one last time. The ceremony wasn't grand. It didn't need to be. A simple wooden podium stood at the hospital's east entrance, the one with the red brick archway, the same one I walked through on opening day 23 years ago with Margaret on my arm and both my kids holding onto my jacket. Now, a banner stretched over that same arch. The Samuel Carter Honor Pavilion, Legacy in Service. The parking lot overflowed with people. Staff in scrubs, local reporters, city officials, and dozens of patients, some in wheelchairs, some with oxygen tanks, some leaning on the very people I hired decades ago. No red carpet. Just reverence. And at the center, a glass case sat on a stone pedestal, under a velvet cloth. Inside was nothing yet. Not until I placed it there. Pastor Howard adjusted the mic. "This isn't about reclaiming what was stolen," he said. "It's about restoring what was always sacred." Samuel Carter didn't just build a hospital. He built a home for the vulnerable. He turned to me. And now, he's placing the final stone. I stepped forward. The wind blew gently through the crowd. I reached into my coat and pulled out the founder's key. Not the replica. The original. Aged brass. Scratched edges. Still heavy. I held it up, and for a moment, the entire crowd was silent, like they understood exactly what it had cost to carry it this far. I walked to the case and slowly lowered the key onto the velvet pillow inside. A plaque beneath it read, "The cost of betrayal. The price of dignity. The key to both." I closed the glass lid. And locked it. For the last time. Elena stood off to the side. She didn't approach the mic. Didn't ask for attention. She simply wept silently. Beside her stood Dr. Mercer, and the head nurse I had hired as an intern 15 years earlier. Each one gave her a nod, a second chance. Ryan was nowhere to be seen. He didn't show up. But that didn't matter. Because the crowd did. The mayor stepped forward next. I've spoken at dozens of dedications, but none as personal as this. Today, we rename the East Wing after a man who gave us more than medicine. He gave us memory. Discipline. And hope. He handed me a ceremonial certificate and whispered, "You're the reason I became mayor. You treated my father when no one else would." I nodded. I remember. He cried when he got the bill. He chuckled. Because it said, "Zero balance." We shook hands. And the crowd clapped. A young girl took the mic next. She was maybe 10, holding her mother's hand. "My little brother was born here last year. He couldn't breathe," she said. "But the people Mr. Carter trained saved him. And now he laughs at everything." Laughter rippled gently. And I, finally, smiled. Because in that small voice, I heard everything I'd fought to preserve. As the ceremony ended, people approached one by one to shake my hand. Not out of habit. Out of earned respect. The nurse who once watched silently when I was discharged hugged me tightly and said, "We never forgot. We were just scared." The janitor who gave me back my key in the cafeteria whispered, "I still keep your cleaning checklist in my locker." Even the CFO who froze my account slipped me a letter, resignation included. Sometimes you only realize who the leader is when they're no longer in charge, he said. You were never not in charge, I told him. You just stopped listening to the right voice. Hours later, as the sun set behind the glass case, I sat alone in the garden courtyard. Watching families visit patients. Listening to the sounds of a place that had once rejected me, but now held my name with reverence. Elena approached quietly. She sat beside me on the bench, holding 2 cups of coffee. Black. No sugar. Just how I take it. She didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "You were right." I sipped my coffee. About what? Everything, she whispered. She handed me a folded note. It was from Ryan. Just one line. I'm leaving town. I won't run. I won't lie. I'll just start over. No apology. But no deflection either. Sometimes that's the best broken people can manage. I didn't hate him. But I didn't miss him either. I looked back toward the key in the glass. Lit by the sunset. Locked behind protection, no longer possession. And I knew the final lesson had landed, not just for my children, but for the world that watched it happen. He called me a waste of money, but in the end, it cost him everything to learn the one truth I never stopped carrying: dignity can't be inherited. It has to be earned.